I'm very much excited to be in front of you today, just presenting our project on language legitimacy and the public sphere in Tanzania's general election campaigns. As already been introduced by my host, Professor Michelle, I'm Joshua Mwaipape from Tanzania. I normally ask people from here, it's not very much known, but we know very much about Chairman, and we has had history about Chairman because we were once under the German colonial rule. So after the Berlin Conference, Tanzania was one of the countries called East Africa, German East Africa, in the eastern part of Africa. So I'm coming from a country that was once belonged to this beautiful country. Our lecture today will focus particularly on addressing this question. How did politicians use the language to position themselves and others as legitimate or illegitimate actors in the public sphere during Tanzania's 2025 general election campaigns? As Alice has introduced, we had election last year in October. It was 2019, October 2025. And for the first time, we experienced something we have never experienced before, because Tanzania, among the African countries that you know, I can say was the only country which has never went into any riots. It was a very peaceful country. And whenever we refer to peace in Africa, I think Tanzania could be the best reference. But now, when it came to this current election, the 2025 general election, something unexpected happened. But of course, for me, I'd say it was expected. It was expected because it brought us an idea to work on this project, because there were all signs that something different might happen because of what happened before the election, as I will elaborate soon. Now this is the country we are talking about from the map, and we just picked this map from CIR report, that the Center for Information Resilience report of this year. So our country borders Kenya, on the northeast. Then on the northwest is Uganda, and we also have other neighboring countries like Rwanda and Burundi. As you see in this map, I'm not so much good at colors, so I'm not able to differentiate between the yellow, green. I don't know what is this color. Is that yellow? It is close to yellow. Those marked there with in yellow represent regions where protest occurs during the election date and a week after the election. So we have those regions: Dar es Salaam, Arusha, Mwanza, Mbeya. These are the big cities, and of course are coming from this place here. It is Dodoma, and they have mentioned it for gold. And of course, even at Dodoma town, there were riots during the election day. I want to take you a little bit through our country and the leaders who led this country from independence. This is Mwalimu Julius Kambarage Nyerere, a very famous African political figure and the philosopher. He was the president of Tanzania, and we refer to him as the father of our nation, because he's the one who fought for independence of the country. And our independence was in 1961. But I mentioned 1964 there because it was the time when the country we name today Tanzania was born. By then it was Tanganyika when we got independence. But after 1964, when now we formed this new name Tanzania after the union between Tanganyika and Zanzibar. So Tanzania is a union of two independent nations, Tanganyika and Zanzibar. And he led the country from 1964 to 1984. And by then we had only, in 1964 and 1977, we had two political parties. We had Tanganyika African National Union, that is TANU, which first belonged to Tanganyika and united with another from the island Tanzania, which is Zanzibar, the part called Afro Shilas part, ASP. Then these two parties formed one political party in 1977 known as CCM, Chama Cha Mapinduzi. Chama Cha Mapinduzi in English would be translated as a revolutionary party, Chama Cha Mapinduzi. So Mwalimu Nyerere was a socialist, and of course that was his ideology. He was African socialist and who believed on self-reliance. And his key approaches to governing the country was based on villagization. Before election, African Tanzanian communities were scattered all over. Then it was his thought that in order to provide social services to the people, they have to be living in villages where it would be easier for the government to provide them with water, with education, with healthy services. So he formed villages. So there was villagization policy. And of course, his approach also centered on state economy. The economy of the country was run by the state. Individuals were not allowed to do business. All the business were controlled by the central government. And of course, we remember Mwalimu Nyerere for his argument for the use of Swahili language in the country. Tanzania has approximately 150 ethnic community languages. I speak Nyakyusa, that is my first language. But Swahili is my national language, so I speak Swahili. So it is likely saying that almost every Tanzanian can speak Swahili. So it might be the only country in Africa where at least almost everyone can speak one language. So we have a lingua franca, which is Swahili, although we have so many languages in the country. And that was his own idea that in order to unite people, we need to have one language which is common to everyone. Now we have that language. And this Mwalimu Nyerere was also an African freedom fighter and unionist. And you can see just from the beginning where he decided to unite with a small country, Zanzibar, which is an island in the Indian Ocean. Now, he was also in the front line to fight for the independence of other African countries. He said he cannot claim to have independence while other fellows are still under colonial rule. So he spent most of his time fighting for the independence of other countries like Angola, Mozambique, and the like, and South Africa. But I'm not here to present about the politics, but I have to touch politics because it means a lot to what we want to present. And of course, these are taking a lot of time. It is important that I have already talked about Mwalimu Nyerere. This was the second president. And they also, from here, we can see some differences. We know that Nyerere was a socialist, but things started to turn around from this period now when we became a president, because now there were some pressure from within Tanzania and outside, and which needed people to be free from doing business and doing whatever. So socialism couldn't be accommodated any longer. So he changed his policy, his approach, his political ideology, economic liberalization, and transition to market capitalism to allow people to get involved into business. This is the third president. Of course, he took the same direction with the second one. And we have this Jakaya Mrisho Kikwete, who was also just like Mwai. But what is important with this Mkapa was the first president to be elected under multipartyism. Multipartyism in Tanzania was introduced in 1992, and the first election after the introduction of multipartyism was in 1995. And we normally launch election after five years. Now in 1995, it was very nice election, and of course I was old enough to understand what is happening. So there was a great competition between Benjamin Mkapa and Agostino Lyatonga Mlema of NCCR Mageuzi, an opposition political party. And after 10 years, we elected Jakaya Mrisho Kikwete, and of course now we had also competition, stiff competition between Jakaya Mrisho Kikwete during the first phase of his leadership in 2005, where he competed with Professor Lipumba of Civic United Front. And during his second phase, it was in 2010, when we elected him again in 2010. There was also a very good competition with Chama Cha Demokrasia na Maendeleo. Now, Chama Cha Demokrasia na Maendeleo, Chama is a party, so democracy is just democracy. So it is a party for democracy and development. Maendeleo is development. But because it's the name, so I will be mentioning Chadema or Chama because we don't need to translate names. Again, we had this here who was nicknamed a bulldozer, John Pombe Magufuli. Things started changing from this point. This man was entertaining economic nationalism, which of course, and populism, which of course go away from the approach of the three predecessors, the two, Kikwete, Mkapa, and Mwinyi, okay, the three of them. So he broke away from the neoliberal consensus of his predecessors and into his own blend of leadership, which is based on national capitalism, nationalistic capitalism. Again, when we were doing election for this president, there was also a stiff competition with Edward Lowassa of Chama Cha Demokrasia na Maendeleo during his phase in 2015. We re-elected him again in 2020. By then, he also competed strongly with Tundu Antipas Lissu of the same Chama Cha Demokrasia na Maendeleo. But it was quite unlucky that this man died in 2021, March. So by virtue of her position, this woman was a vice president with regard to the constitution of Tanzania. When the president dies in power, 3 or 2 years before his term goes off, then the vice president has to take the lead. There is no need for re-election. So the vice president, she is the first female vice president and the first female president of the country, and who took the lead after the death of John Pombe Magufuli, just as I mentioned, by the virtue of her position as the vice president. Samia, just as after being sworn in, she articulated that she wants to establish a policy of the 4 Rs, which means reconciliation, resilience, reforms, and rebuilding, just because she believed that her predecessor, John Pombe Magufuli, had caused damage to democracy. And of course, that was the case. During John Pombe Magufuli reign, the opposition political parties were not happy. As I mentioned, that was a nationalist, a nationalist man who wanted everything to be under the control of the state. So some of the leaders of the opposition parties flew away from the country. And when she came into power, she called all of them to return back to the country and promising that there should be the 4 Rs: reconciliation, resilience, reforms, and rebuilding. But what happened a few years as we were approaching to the election now, she became the beast. And of course, all the promise that she said, especially reconciliation and making some reforms, were completely ignored. As I'm speaking right now, one of the strongest opponents of the government in Tanzania, Tundu Antipas Lissu, is detained for alleged treason and inciting the public to protest during the election. And of course, what Tundu Lissu said, he just insisted on this, on reforms. He said, we will never go for the election until reforms with the electoral commissions are made. And of course, it was the president's idea that reforms are needed. Then Tundu Lissu intensifies on that idea and claimed that he wants reforms with regard to the electoral procedures. Because as it is for now, it is the president who appoints the chairman of the electoral commission, the commissioners for the electoral commission, and the electoral commission is supported by the district executive directors who are also appointed by the president. But now the president is the incumbent, was also vying for presidential post. But if the same person who appoints all those people, then they are saying that we cannot go for election until we do these reforms, because we cannot have a player who is the coach, the referee who is a coach and a player of another team. So because of that, Tundu Lissu was detained 2 months, I think, 6 months before the election, or 2 or 4 months before the campaign. So he completely did not participate in the election process, and till now is still detained. Now, here I want to talk about the political landscape and a shrinking opposition, something which I've already touched slightly. And here I will be talking about the parliament, the Tanzania National Assembly. And the data we see on the table is about the current situation. That now we have, under the category of members of parliament who are elected through their constituencies, we have 272 members elected by voters in their constituencies as member of parliament in the House in Dodoma. And among them, 270 come from Chama Cha Mapinduzi, the ruling party. Only 2 were elected from the opposition party, ACT Wazalendo. And there are also seats for those who are appointed. They are special seats for women. They are appointed from different political parties. And under that category, we have 115 members, of which 113 belong to Chama Cha Mapinduzi, the ruling party. Only 2 are from the opposition party, cha umma. It is Chama Cha Ukombozi wa Umma. And of course, the president has 10 positions. He or she appoints 10 to be members of the parliament. Then out of those, she appointed 10 from the same political party, Chama Cha Mapinduzi, the ruling party. There is none from the opposition party. And there is another member in the House who enters the House by the virtue of his or her position, that is the Attorney General. We have one Attorney General, and of course, he is a presidential appointee, and normally one from the ruling party is appointed. But of course, that position does not need one to be a member of any political party. But the situation as it is, there is no way someone from opposition can be appointed. Now we have that total number of member of parliament, 403, of which only 4 are from the opposition party. But you can see the changes. I said I'm not a politician. I want to present here something related to language. But this data is very much important to tell us why things happen the way they are. Because if you see now, I just tried to present about what was the situation before this election of 2025, that is 2025. In 2015 to 2020, it is the time when we had so many members from the opposition in the National Assembly, where we have 115. Now you can see the year only 4. We had 115 in that period of time. And of course, we were happy, and people liked to see what the members of parliament were discussing, because there were always 40 discussions in the House. And of all those, 70 were from Chadema, and I'm trying to tell you that Chadema, Chama Cha Demokrasia na Maendeleo, is a very strong part, and it used to have that number of representatives. CUF had 42 in that period. ACT Wazalendo, which now had 2 seats, it had only 1, and NCCR Mageuzi had 1 seat by then. And things started changing from the election of 2020 to 2025, when Magufuli was elected for the second time, where now we had only 80 seats for the opposition. You can see almost all people in the House were from the same political party, and now we have this number only 4. They are the minority, and of course they don't even form the opposition wing in the House. Now, with regard to our project, with regard to the methodological framework, these projects, of course, for the lens of social linguistic and linguistic anthropology, where at this particular moment, we wanted to establish the legitimacy and the public sphere as per Habermas vis-a-vis the Tanzanian reality. And our project is follow the qualitative approach, where ideally we have collected so many texts or corpus. We have now so many videos and audios, about 100, but for this particular presentation, we use 20 corpus of Swahili language political texts, which have been gathered from broadcasts, campaign speeches, and social media. And of course, we collected our data from September, and of course, it was by the end of August, because campaigns were launched on 28th of August. So there are some of the texts which were collected from the opening day of the campaign, August, but most of them are from September to December. But at this point in time, I will discuss about the text we collected from September till October 29th, the election day. Though we have we still have some videos we're working on, which were collected after the election and towards December. But at this point in time, I will present only from August, the end of August to October during the election. Now the preliminary findings. If you remember, we want to establish how the politicians use language to legitimize or delegitimize others. And of course, we found that almost all politicians use language for that same sake, for the same reason, to legitimize themselves while delegitimizing others. And here we start presenting a few data on, from the starting with the incumbent president, Madam Samia Suluhu Hassan, on the way she uses language to legitimize herself through claims of competence and experience. And of course, the way she legitimizes herself and her party through claims of competence and experience. I don't know how to, I can switch this. I can play this one. Oh, okay. As I mentioned, that in Tanzania, Swahili is the national language. And of course, in all campaigns, the language which is used is Swahili. So these are in Swahili. I will be trying to translate. Is it translate or interpret in English? Okay. What he's saying, I want to tell you one thing. In running a government, there is no, so. Oh my God. Yeah. I want to tell you something. I want to tell you one thing. That in running a government, there is no trial, no experiment. You give a nation to somebody you trust, will run it well, and the interest of the people be saved. Looking at Tanzania, looking at our Tanzanians, the party that will really do the job and the interest of the people be saved is Chama Cha Mapinduzi only. Others are not yet ready. If you give others, either the government or the constituents, they are going to ruin you, they are going to destroy you. Because after entering there, they need to learn. They need to learn. And if you give a constituent to somebody outside Chama Cha Mapinduzi, whom will he talking to about the laws? To whom will he be asking for water? Because the government belongs to Chama Cha Mapinduzi and he or she is opposition. Dear fellow from Bunda, don't play with that matter. Don't play with that matter. Cast your voice to the appointee from Chama Cha Mapinduzi. Give them voice so our way to development process. I want to tell you, don't be deceived. Don't be deceived. Development and your interest will come from Chama Cha Mapinduzi. So you can see from her speech that she has used some metaphors. So they are the metaphorical construction of governing competence. She has also used some issue related to exclusive legitimacy claim to legitimize herself, and at some point delegitimize the opposition through dependence narratives, as we shall see. Here you can see that the incumbent President Samia Suluhu Hassan uses the metaphor of experiments to delegitimize opposition parties by portraying them as least, inexperienced, and potentially dangerous. So for her to elect opposition members, you are electing something which is least, inexperienced, and dangerous. So she delegitimizes others by painting them those colors. Again, as she says, in running a country, there are no trials, no experiments. Just to intensify that these opponents or opposition members are not qualified for the presidential post. We have another metaphor, that is the metaphor of leadership as a burden, caring, or sacrifice. But of course, in the speech that I have just played, this is not there. I just wanted to include it here because it has to do with metaphors, and as I leave this slide, there's no way I can come back again and talk about metaphor again. But of course, there's another video, a different video from a different place where she mentioned that leadership is a burden. It is a burden carrying sacrifice. And of course, she was talking about this by using this metaphor where she mentioned these are the words she talked about. She told the people that they should leave insults to her because he can bear the insults. And of course, that was maybe a reference from the comments from the people online, those who do not like her, and of course other politicians who are opposing her, as maybe we will see from the way the opponents are talking about. So what Samia is saying here is that is trying to calm down her followers, that they should leave, they shouldn't bother about the insights because she is ready to carry the insights. Politically, that statement strengthens legitimacy by presenting herself as resilient, selfless, and morally devoted to the nation. Morally devoted to the nation. There is also another metaphor, that is the metaphor of politics as religious. Politics as religious. Of course, I don't like to play this video in the link because it will take us so long. But of course, in this video, what Samia is trying to say, I have just picked a close phrase about what she said. She mentioned that Lord Jesus was crucified for saving people. She also mentioned that Prophet Muhammad was beaten to the extent of breaking his teeth just for the sake of saving people. So this metaphor frames political leadership as a prophetic work, a divine duty, and a moral struggle. And of course, this is not merely a religious reference. Rather, it is a conceptual metaphor. It may imply righteousness, or that righteous leaders are always attacked. They normally suffer to validate moral truth. And it may mean that criticism of the leader resembles persecution of the holy figure, as she is trying to relate herself with those holy figures, Jesus Christ and Prophet Muhammad. Another strategy that the incumbent president used to legitimize herself is through exclusive claims. And the key linguistic strategy employed in Samia Suluhu Hassan's speech is that of exclusive legitimation. And that is evident in the repeated assertion that the only party that will work and safeguard the interest of the nation is CCM. And you can take this reference from the video that I played, the first video that I played. There is data. Again, that the party that will work and ensure the interest of the country are achieved is only Chama Cha Mapinduzi. And that was said in that video. It was 9th of October 2020. Trying to legitimize herself, praying the exclusive legitimacy claims. So the expression only, as you can see from the data, plays a significant role in constructing the exclusive legitimation claim by taking off other political parties as just nothing but only Chama Cha Mapinduzi, her own political party. The other strategy is delegitimizing the opposition through dependence narratives. Here, the portrayal of opposition politicians as powerless outsiders through the rhetorical questions that Samia was asking herself, questions that, who will they go talk to? She said, if the people will elect the member of parliament from the opposition party, now she's asking this question, who are those members of political party going to talk to? Who will they ask for us? Who will they ask for water from? So for her, for one to ask about these basic these needs, which of course are the needs of the people, one should belong to her political party. But we are in the multi-party system, which of course we believe that every nation, every political party has the same right and the same responsibility for the people to serve. But that's the way the president, the incumbent president, is trying to delegitimize the opposition party so that people will see that the only alternative is to elect for her as a president. So these questions, as I mentioned, imply that resources belong to Chama Cha Mapinduzi, and that access to development depends on the ruling party affiliation, and opposition representatives cannot effectively serve the citizens. Again, we can talk about legitimacy through construction of fear. Legitimacy through construction of fear. Samia Suluhu Hassan's speech uses subtle fear appeals that cautions voters not to elect opposition contestants. There's a point where she mentioned that if you elect an opposition, know that they will mislead you, they will ruin you. So, according to her, opposition victory is framed as dangerous, wasteful, and destabilizing. So, fear becomes a legitimacy resource. Fear becomes a legitimacy resource. Now, I think that this one would be the last for the incumbent president. So I will talk after this. I'll talk about the opposition very quickly. Here, I want to talk about pronominal choice and power relation, also as a way of legitimizing and delegitimizing others. So we can hear from Her Excellency Samia. In general, let me say, Chama Cha Mapinduzi has intended to do job. We have seen tangible job you have seen. And we intend to do more job for the second phase of the. For that matter, I request you to elect Chama Cha Mapinduzi. That is the point I want to make. And here I want to say, my comrades, to eliminate fear among you. There are people who are threatening to make people fear to get out to vote on 2019. I want to tell you, I am the commander-in-chief of this country. I want to tell you, they shouldn't dare. If a piece of roofing material bursts, we will react. We are well organized. Just go out, vote, and get back home. No fear, no worry. Just go for vote. Now, you can see from what the president is trying to say. At this moment, and during the election, this won't be a president, but a contestant. Now, she is trying to assure her followers that she is the commander-in-chief, so her followers shouldn't worry about anything. And interestingly, when she was talking about that, she was using her own reference, a first person singular, I. And that's suggesting her own authority as a president who can do anything to control the situation. But of course, you can see the way she changed to plural when she was talking about what is likely to happen to those people who might cause chaos. She didn't say that I will react, I will do something bad, because that is very much controversial. Despite the fact that these are not her followers, they are in the opposition, they are Tanzanians. So of course, she cannot declare that she is the one who will do something worse to these people. And now she changed to plural. We will react. And of course, with regard to Inigo Mora, of course, I read this. She talked about three types of we. And of course, I think the we that Samia Suluhu Hassan has used belongs to external we. It is the we, which of course the speaker is not involved, is not part of. And for sure I can say, because something worse, as she said, happened. She said when just a burst of, she will hear the burst of the roofing material, bati, I don't know the real English name for bati.
Yeah, like the corrugated iron.
Yeah, so the roofing material that we use in Tanzania are very light and they are noise. Even if the rains, when it rains, it is so much noise even within the house if you're in the house. But when I'm here, I don't hear. I just look outside and I find that it was raining. So she was saying that if she will hear just the burst, the bang of that piece, then she said, we will react. Changing from I, then we. And of course, what I'm trying to say, what she said happened. And there were reactions. And the people were asking, who killed our sons and daughters? She never said she's the one. But people were carried by this, by we. And she's not part of that we. Not sure if I'm confusing you or I'm making the point right. So in this speech, as we have seen that initially Samia uses and repeats first person singular to assert a personal authority as president and commander-in-chief. But when she introduced the controversial warning, she shifted to the plural, we. And this is the same thing that I have explained. And I have to go to the way the opposition contestants use the language to establish their legitimacy. I'll be a little bit quick because I think I've taken more time than required, I guess. Yeah. So here now we have the opposition contestants. They normally use moral legitimation through audience engagement and rhetorics. Moral engagement, moral legitimation through audience engagement, rhetorics. Of course, I have an audio for this, but it is very long. I don't think if I can play it here, but it is of this same thing that I've written here. These are the data which I've just picked from that long, which takes about 10 minutes audio. Here we have this contestant from Civic United Front named Gombo Samanito Gombo. Then in one of his campaign, started by greeting his followers, Haki. This Haki is the slogan for the party. They normally say Haki. Haki means justice. Justice or right. Justice. So when the reader says justice, then they respond, Sawa, it means equal right, that is the meaning. So he said, Haki, then they respond the same. Then he asks a question, Chama gani hakitendi haki? Which party does not do justice? And the people responded, CCM, the ruling party, Chama Cha Mapinduzi. Then he repeats, Chama gani hakitendi haki? The response was CCM. Then he again reiterated, nataka mseme wasikie huko Mwanza wanapofungia campaign. This was the last day of the campaign, 28th of October. So CCM was in another region, Mwanza. So what he said here is that they should speak loudly so that CCM people will hear they're from Mwanza, just a distant region. So she asked again, I want you to repeat so that in Mwanza, where CCM are making their last campaigns, can hear what we say. Then he asked again, chama gani hakitendi haki? Which party does not do justice? Then they responded loudly, CCM. Then what do I want to say? Rather than just presenting the facts or the evidence directly, the speaker invites the audience to collectively attack the ruling party. So here, the speaker or the opposition candidates uses the mass to attack the ruling party. So he legitimized himself by delegitimizing the ruling party by inviting the followers to attack the ruling party. So language here functions less as deliberation and more as political performance. The repetition reinforces a binary opposition between the people and the ruling party. So here what you see that who are opposing CCM, it is not him, but the people. Because he was just asking, who is not doing justice? Then the people responded. So he is safe. And at the end of that audio, the candidate said this phrase that they preach justice while they do not do justice. But of course, he did not mention the party CCM. That's the one I said I don't have to praise. Again, there is legitimation through education comparison. The same person, in the same, that's why this audio is very long. The same person who was asking which party is not doing justice also said the things which, of course, I translated English, so you can see there. He started, after that greetings and salutation, he started narrating about his education background. And he mentioned that I started at the University of Dar es Salaam. He started from the primary school, but I just picked from the tertiary education. I started at the University of Dar es Salaam with a degree in urban planning. I started at the Erasmus University in the Netherlands. I studied at the University of Lund in Sweden with a diploma in urban transport, and there people were shouting, screaming. They are happy that the contestant studied abroad. And I have studied at various universities in various parts of the world. I wanted to tell, this is very much important. I wanted to tell you that so that you know that your candidate has an education that is beyond doubt. There are other candidates we have now who are reaching at a point where they say that when I reached Form 4, I did not do well, and then this she is mine, because in Swahili there is no distinction between gender. So I use she because I know that he was referring to the president. Yeah. Then she asks for votes when she knows she does not know, she doesn't understand things much. Who doesn't understand things much? Prior to the campaigns, there was a meeting where the president, Samia Suluhu Hassan, was trying to inspire ladies. And she said openly that when she was doing her education, she did not perform well in the secondary education. But of course, she told them that now she's the president, so things are changing. But now Gombo took that point, then commenting that this failed in Form 4. Then she asked people to vote for her while she does not know things. So As I mentioned from this data, Gombo uses his educational background not only to establish personal credibility, but also to implicitly contrast himself with President Samia, the incumbent President Samia. His education is framed as a proof of competence and readiness to govern. And the incumbent's disclosed academic weakness is reframed as a limitation on leadership ability. Here we have another theme on the rhetoric of grievance, where we have another opposition candidate, Kunje Ngombale Mwilu, who said, if I am announced a winner, I will stay 2 months without going to the palace until a pond to keep crocodiles is prepared. That corrupt person will be eaten by crocodiles. Who is that corrupt person? You can see here, there is none of the opposition contestant who is mentioning the name of the president, even saying the president, just not the name, but the title that the contestant from the ruling party. Nobody dared to mention that. But here is telling us that when he's announced a winner, he will not have to hurry to go to the palace. He will wait until a pond is. This is an image showing us the way he is not happy with the corruption in the country. So he's telling us about corruption. So the use of that symbol of authority to validate the public deposited grievance against ruling parties' corruption. So the government is viewed as contaminated place, such that he cannot rush to go to that palace until it is cleaned by crocodiles. So here I have a question of whether it is a grievance or controlled dissent. A grievance or controlled dissent. Remember, I said none of the contestants from the opposition party dared to mention president or saying the ruling party is not doing so and so. This is from the same person, Kunje Ngombale Mwilu, who said he wants to go to the palace until the pond is done. Then in this case, he's saying, if I die today, you will die tomorrow. Even if you threaten me for speaking the truth, I am not afraid. Kill me today, you will die tomorrow. Just because I spoke a little about the corrupt ministers surrounding Mama, they are already getting angry. Shouldn't we speak? Corrupt ministers, where did you get all those buses from? There are some ministers who own buses. Corrupt ministers, where did you get all those trucks from? Corrupt ministers, where did you get all those countless projects and even fuel stations from? And then when I speak here in Dodoma and call your parliament weak and ineffective, they get angry. Strange. You point out that members of parliament sleep inside there and they get angry. A member of parliament goes there and starts performing acrobatics inside. Hey, he is insisting that if he is a president, nobody can do that. Because there was one of the member of parliament who performed acrobatics within the house. So, but now what I'm trying to say, that here the speaker constructs a rhetoric of grievance by portraying himself as a victim of intimidation for exposing corruption and institutional failures. Yet, he never faced the contestant, but he talks about ministers. If I didn't take everything, but in some places it's mentioned about regional commissioners, district commissioners, but he never mentions about the incumbent president. And that's why I'm asking, is this grievance or controlled dissent? You are competing with the president, then you are complaining about the ministers for what they own, the business that they do from the government money, but he never talked about the incumbent president. So I think that would be a controlled dissent, just trying to tell us that Mama is not bad, but who are bad are those people who are surrounding Mama. So that's the way some of the opposition political parties are playing with words. It is the way of making people love the incumbent president by complaining about people who are surrounding her, but trying to tell us that this Mama would not be a bad person, but who are bad are these people who are surrounding her. And because after the election they want to be ministers, then luckily Mama may appoint some other good people. Now we have the okay. It is the same thing. I think I have to skip this. Then I go to the other one. The issue of electionality and the public sphere. Electionality. I'm about to finish. Electionality and the public sphere. So we can play this. This man is a presidential candidate. You can see he dances. He's asking, thank you so much, DJ. Where did you learn? You know music. I have finished this agenda, then I come to another manifesto. The manifesto about education. Kiss of nowadays are very short. You cannot even tell which one is in primary school and which one is in secondary. They finish school while they are still very young. UDPT, that is the name of the party. When he's given an opportunity to be a president, children will start from standard 7 to standard 10. Then clap your hands. He dances again. Oh. So, in Tanzanian culture or context, politicians are highly respected. And because of that, people do not expect that a presidential candidate can dance. Because in our culture, there's no way a respected person can dance. Of course, we can play music, but for a respected person like this man cannot play this kind of music in public. So dancing violates Habermas' principle that political debates should be rational. So this is a kind of irrationality, doing something that people are not expecting to be performed in public by this extinguished figure. And this suggests that the opposition is an escort to legitimize the electoral process for the dominant ruling party. Remember, I mentioned that the primary opposition party did not participate in this election. So these are just some weak parties. And for the first time, we saw that there were 16 of them. So 17 political parties participated. And of course, the government bought them very big cars for the campaign, something which has never happened before. So every contestant has a brand new Land Cruiser Sport, which cost 500 Tanzanian millions. So because of that, trying to think that these are likely escorting the ruling party to the floor because of the irrationality that we have seen from this video. Now, after just concluding that Chama Cha Mapinduzi maintains authority through an integrated apparatus of exclusive legitimacy and systematic independence narratives, as I have said, by framing the state's apparatus as appropriately and leadership as a sacred, non-experimental sacrifice, the ruling class constructs the opposition as an existential hazard to development. Again, opposition parties seek to establish their own legitimacy by positioning themselves as challengers to entrenched patterns of corruption and governance failures, presenting themselves as credible alternatives. However, while some can mention corrupt leaders, they never point fingers to the incumbent president. They talk about other people in the system, and of course, who are not competing for the presidential post. Now, the Habermas date that Tanzania campaigns highlight a sharp break from Habermas' ideas of rational critical debate, as we have seen from these last debates and other debates which of course leave a gap. They are just like they are criticizing at the same time polishing the image of the incumbent president. So at the end, the lack of rationality and clear, open, strong opposition might have led to the anticipated chaos which occurred in the election day and a week after. I mentioned earlier that Tanzania has never been a chaotic country. It was always very peaceful. There was always a peaceful transfer of authority, but although all the presidents that we have ever elected come from the same political party, but we had never experienced any chaos. It is only until this election. And of course, even the kind of arguments that the opposition parties are using to legitimize or delegitimize the ruling party, as we have seen, were quite new to our experience. Having said so, I was very happy to present before you, and I'm done.